savage land.
I could not agree with you more, my dear. My daddy settled this land, and I know he'll be looking down on us, pleased at how we help the natives.
Yes, they've lost their land, but they've gained access to heaven.
But Father, do you mean unless an innocent receives communion, they're destined to go to hell? That hardly seems fair.
What I mean to say, Jenny, is that there is a great deal of difference between an innocent and a savage.
I never thought of it that way.
What does redemption mean? On the surface, redemption means making amends, doing enough good to outweigh the bad. At the beginning of Red Dead Redemption, we met a man who was not fighting for glory, justice, or even revenge. We meet John Marston, a broken soul. He is bitter, tired, and hollowed out by the life he's led. What we see isn't a gunslinger full of purpose, but a man who feels like he's really dead inside. A man backed into a corner by the very people who promised him a second chance. Marston has been coerced by the federal government and Agent Ross to track down and kill the man he once called family, Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela, and Dutch Van der Leyen, in exchange for the safety of his wife and son. It's not a request, it's blackmail, and John knows it. His past sins are being used against him, and with his family held hostage, he's left with no other choice. This crushing weight makes itself clear early in the game when John confronts Bill at Fort Mesa.
Well?
Oh. Poor John.
It's not a triumphant return, it's a man walking into the lion's den with no real hope. He knows he'll likely die and he doesn't seem to care in a way. It feels like suicide. In a way, it feels like suicide by outlaw, as though John is hoping Bill will pull the trigger and end everything for him. But he doesn't die. He's saved by Bonnie McFarlane, and that moment becomes quite monumental. It's not just that Bonnie patches his wounds, she interrupts what could have been John's end and unintentionally demands that he keep living. She introduces stability and kindness at a time when John's world is built on betrayal and loss. From that point on, Red Dead Redemption becomes more than a manhunt. It becomes a story of a man searching for a reason to live. John doesn't rush through his missions with excitement, he trudges through them, wary and reluctant. He isn't motivated by loyalty or even vengeance, he's simply doing what he has to, because the only people who ever made love worth living, Abigail and Jack, are being held out of reach. Throughout the story, John repeatedly shows signs of emotional numbness. He's sardonic, cold, often detached. He openly admits regret, but rarely shows remorse. He speaks about his past with a mix of resignation and bitterness, not romanticizing it like Dutch, or excusing it like Bill. He doesn't glorify the gang's legacy, he carries it like a weight. And as he's forced to hunt down the very people who once meant everything to him, the psychological cost becomes clear. John is being torn apart not just by violence, but by guilt. He knows he's being used, he knows this isn't justice, it's punishment, but with no way out, he keeps moving forward because what else is there to do?
Stand
up in front of a runaway train just to feel alive again.
Before we judge a man for his crimes, first we have to walk Mao in his cowboy boots. I think that's what they wore back in the day. John Marston's early life is sad and tragic, a patchwork of hardship, violence, and abandonment that shaped him into the conflicted man we meet in Red Dead Redemption. His mother was a prostitute that died giving birth to him. His father, a Scottish immigrant who was often
Julian! I don't know where I felt like I get a little drink around here, do you, bud?
drunk, illiterate, and abusive, who died when John was just 8 years old. Orphaned and alone, John was sent to an orphanage, but like many institutions of that era, it was harsh, loveless, and offered little chance for a real future. John would spend the next few years in a rough orphanage before running away to make his own luck on the streets. At the age of 11, John committed his first murder. At 11, when he shot a man, although he claimed it was not his fault. My only question is, where do you get a gun in the Wild West at 11 years? In 1885, at the age of 12, Marston had been caught stealing by homesteaders in Illinois who planned on hanging him. Dutch Van der Linde stepped in and saved the young boy, taking him under his wing. John was thus inducted into the Van der Linde gang. The gang became a surrogate family to the young boy, with Dutch becoming his mentor and father figure. When Dutch found him, John wasn't just a stray kid, he was a mirror of the kind of lost soul Dutch believed he could save. Dutch took him in, gave him a purpose, and gave him something he hadn't had before, a loving family. While I was writing this, it reminded me of something I recently read, which had the following quote: "The lonely one offers his hand too quickly to whomever he encounters." And also feel like the game should have been named Red Dead Daddy-ish. I feel like, I thought that was going to be funny, but imagine if they named the game Red Dead Daddy Issues, or maybe Red Dead Family Issues, because to be honest, I feel like most of John's, but okay, I'm going to skip. Okay, it's not funny. It's not. It was way more funny in my head, but now I'm not. Okay, it's not funny. Once again, we see here that John was a victim of circumstance. He had no one. Dutch was the only one willing to take him in, and what do you do in a situation like that? To John, Dutch was more than a gang leader. He was a father figure, a mentor, and a man who was for a while seemed to have a vision. Dutch preached freedom, rebellion against the oppressive forces of government and capital. He made outlaws feel like revolutionaries in those early days. There was something righteous about it. John's life is a cycle of abandonment and survival. He was a boy who lost everything, found belonging in wrong places, and spent the rest of his life trying to make something good out of those tiny broken pieces. Something like that.
In my country? I don't think you did, amigo. I mean you no harm.
You mean us no harm? This is funny. What harm could you do to us exactly?
Nothing, amigo. Now, I appreciate the welcome committee, but I'd hate to spoil a beautiful afternoon.
When Red Dead Redemption sends John Marston into Mexico, the tonal shift is immediate and jarring. Gone are the open plains of New Austin and the familiar faces of oddball outlaws and begrudging allies like Bonnie McFarlane, and the place is a landscape scorched by war, ruled by liars, killers, and revolutionaries. It's not just a new chapter in the story, it's a gut punch, a narrative left turn meant to unsettle the player and force a reckoning, not only with the character of John Marston, but with the romanticized image of the Old West itself. Up to this point, the game balances its heavy themes: guilt, revenge, change, with sharp humor and a host of likable misfits. John, most certainly a man with a dark past, rarely does anything overly cruel in the first half unless the player chooses to do so. The tone feels like a classic western driven by a familiar motive. A grizzled man with a violent past seeks revenge and maybe redemption as he tries to reunite with his families. It echoes the likes of Jeremiah Johnson, where the wilderness and violence are both setting and punishment, and the story is personal. But when you reach the climax of the first arc, everything shifts. So, Bill Williamson escapes to Mexico, and what seemed like a straight line toward resolution suddenly veers off into unfamiliar territory, politically, morally, and thematically. Vocabulary. John is forced to start over in a foreign land, stripped of allies, surrounded by violence, and fueled by growing frustration and despair. And it's here, among the Civil War torn hills and burned villages, that Red Dead Redemption asks its most difficult questions, not just of its characters but of its players. In Mexico, John Marston becomes complicit in and often directly responsible for some of the most gruesome and morally ambiguous acts in the entire game. He commits murder on a scale far greater than before, assassinating soldiers, rebels, and political targets alike. He engages in extrajudicial killings, interrogations, destruction of property, and even aids in a coup d'etat. He flips sides between the tyrannical colonial Ireland and the corrupt revolutionary Abraham Reyes, with little hesitation, not because he believes in either cause, but because they're twos to his singular goal: finding Javier Escuela.
For what? I don't know. And you? I'm looking for a couple of men. Bill Williamson, Javier Escuela. Escuela's from here.
It could be. This whole place is teeming with Americans on the run, mercenaries, locals hell-bent on revolution.
Revolution? Another one?
Yeah. Never really ends. This whole place has been a hotbed for revolution since before the Spanish left.
And that's the chilling part, the justification. Over and over, players and John alike are forced to repeat or have to do this: I need to get my family back. That mantra carries him and us through a death toll that grows increasingly hard to ignore. What began as a tale of personal redemption has now escalated into a conflict where innocent families are slaughtered, women are brutalized, and entire villages are erased from the map. The scope of the violence is no longer outlaw versus outlaw, it's government versus rebels, army versus citizens, empire versus uprising. And John, he's right in the middle of it, just trying to complete his objective. This is where Rockstar's storytelling takes a sharp, deliberate turn. It's not just open world chaos for the sake of fun, it's an investment. The game wants you to sit back mid-mission and think, wait, am I the good guy? And it forces that question not through a cutscene or a speech, but through what you're made to do. You're no longer simply avenging betrayal or recovering a stolen life. You enabling atrocities and often committing them yourself. The point is twofold. First, it transforms John from a man who says he's trying to change into someone who must show what that actually looks like and how difficult, even hypocritical, that journey is. Second, it symbolizes the death of the romanticized West. In this new world, ideals are worth nothing and morality is no longer black and white. The problems are bigger, bloodier, and systematic. What was once a story of outlaws becomes a story of nationals and political manipulation, violence without justice. The Wild West isn't dying, it's already dead. What's left is just power and those desperate enough to chase it. The tragedy is that John Marston knows this, and he can stop it. He may kill Javier Escuelo, but Mexico doesn't change. The people are still oppressed. Reyes, the revolutionary he helped, is already showing signs of becoming the next tyrant, and John, he rides north with blood on his hands and no closer to peace than when he crossed the river.
Then I'll help in any way I can.
You are in no position to negotiate. Now, por favor, a bunch of these idiots men are fighting at Tesoro Azul. Now you head there and you lend your support. Baboso, ¿cuántas veces voy a decirte? No ponga detrás de mí. ¿Qué eres, cabrón? No está mi sombra. Vaya.
Mexico doesn't absolve John Marston, it doesn't save him, it reveals him. And when he finally returns home, so that he may find peace, but it comes with the knowledge that redemption, if it exists at all, it's never clean and never free.
My people are free, and it is all thanks to you, John.
And to the people who laid down their lives. People like Luisa.
Oh, yes. She was very brave, and she will be missed. Who was she again?
Your peasant girl wife-to-be?
Oh, yes, of course. She will have a day named after her. Laura's Day.
Luisa.
What? Oh, yes, I know Laura as well. Magnificent girl. Like riding a pompous bull it was, amigo. You never saw anything like it. Anyway, enough about sport. Let's get back to politics. I trust you will join us in riding on the Capitol.
I'd love to, but with Williamson dead, my jailers need me back in Blackwater.
¿Qué hacen? Levántense. Well, I must say, I'll miss you, John Marston.
I doubt you'll even remember me, Abraham, but it's been an experience. Good luck with the revolution. If you win power, remember why you wanted it.
Well, travel safely, amigo. Mona.